Now, I think today, first, we have to hear our ex-ambassador to Canada from Armenia, so that we would set the tune of the day and event. And this is where the whole thing has, I guess, initiated. And we will move forward from here. And I think we have lots of work to do beyond this point. So I would like to pass it on to you, Pantren.
Thank you.
There will be 3 languages spoken here: Eastern, Western, and English.
I will say a couple of words in English and
Sure.
then switch to Armenian. It's really an honor to be here in Canada and in Guelph to meet my friends all over Canada, and also to find new pieces of Armenian heritage because it's the first time that I see this really amazing piece of art, and it's very close to my heart because it's David of Sasun, Sasunci David, and now I am part of a movement in Armenia which is called Sasnatsarel. Actually, it's the same Armenian epic poem and the same Armenian history. And this shows that in 1976, even Armand Puspusyan was thinking about all that part of heritage, because some scholars tell us that there are some special codes in this Armenian epic tale about our past and about our future. Maybe I'm not specialist in this field, but I'm sure that we can see in the epic poem of Sasunci David all values of Armenian people, and spreading all over the world some such pieces of art also we share with this our history and heritage with others. Ես կարծում եմ Երևանում եւս մեզ պիտի դիտեն, and this for our friends in Armenia. Ես շատ ուրախ եմ, որ նորից Կանադայում եմ եւ հայտնաբերում եմ ինձ համար եւս նոր բաներ, մասնավորապես Արման Բուտբուզյանի Սասունցի Դավիթ այս արվեստի գործը, որը շատ կարևոր է։ Այն առումով, որ Սասունցի Դավիթ էպոսը իր մեջ մարմնավորում է մեր ազգային արժեքները եւ նաև ինչ որտեղ դրա մեջ են կոդեր կան, ուղերձ կա ապակային ուղված, եւ կարծում եմ մենք այստեղ այս բարբերաբար հանդիպելով նաև մենք միասնությամբ մեր ավելի ուժն ենք գտնում ազգային, այնպես որ շատ ուրախ եմ։ Այսքանը, համեցեք։
Շնորհակալ եմ։ Արի շարունակություն, ինչ որ գսեք դուք։ Իմ ձակումը Սասունցի ենք։ Եվ այսա սկսա հուզրի հիմա, դողոս անունը Դարոն է։
Իմ հայրից մեկի անունն է Դարոն է։
Ես արևմտահայերենի բաժինը պիտինեմ, այստեղ մեկ կանի մամուկիներ կան, որ արևմտահայերեն կհասկանան, իսկ արևելահայերենը մի քիչ հետո արդեն իր տեղը պիտի գտնե։ Քանի հուզումի բաժին կա, ես կգարձեմ, որ պզդիկ էջմը կրած եմ, կանմը վարգյան է բոլորը, որը խորհրդանիշ է, անիշ որ մենք այսօր այս 4 պատերու չէ, կշմավիլի 6 պատերու միջե կեցած ենք, և իպրը սկիսպ բանվել եմ, կնգադեմ այդ բոլորը։ Արման Բուզբուզյան, կանիմ խոսք ասեմ իր մասին, արևմտահայերենով։ Այս արվեստակետը շատ նման է հրապուխիմը, որ ուժեղ ժայթկած է շատ գարչ տևողությամբ։ Արդարած այնպիսի հասուն գործեր իր մատղաշ տարիքին, որ դագավին մեզ բոլորս այսօր կզարմացնեն։ Լրած է հրապուխը այժմ։ Ցավ պատճառած նախ իր ընտանիքին, քաղաքին, ապա քաղաքին ու ծնածյան, կրթված և նվիրված է իր ոգեղեն սիրո արվեստը։ Այստեղ այսօր դագավին կա մխացող ցավ։ Այստեղ կան նաև անոր մեջ բարուրված երկունքեն սեր, ուրախություն, արկասիկ, բերջանք և հաղթանակ։ Այսօր այս յուրահատուկ բահին սկիզբ կառնե Արմանդ Բուզբուզյանի հարության եւ հաղթանակի նոր հնագետը։ Այս նեղլիկ միջոցին մեկտեղված են ստվարթիվով հետաքրքիր մարդիկ, հայրենիք են ներկայ է քաղաքական աստավորություն ամցենս բարոն Արաբաբյանին, որ մոդորեն պիտի այս ոգեն սերմը Դանի Հայաստան հայրենիք, ուր մոտ երկար սպասում է երկ, իբր հոգեհանքիստ, պիտի վերաթարնա իր նախնիներուն հասցեին։ Ճիշտն ասած այս բահը երազած եմ ես տեսնել շատ երկար դարիներ առաջ։ Իսկ քանի մը խոսք ունիմ Արմանդի արվեստի մասին, գսեն թե Լեոնարդոն, եթե այսօր դագավին ողջ լար, գործեր անպայման պիտի վերացականի փոխված լային, ինչ որ Արմանդը արած է։ Արմանդի բարակային իրավաշ գործերն այնքան շուտ ցածկած է վերացականի, որ մեզ բոլորս իսկապես կզարմացնեն։ Այժմ բանն է այլևս, որ Արմանդի գործերը լրջորեն մասնակիցներու կողմեն ուսումնասիրվին եւ արժանվույն գնահատվի միջազգային մագարտակի վրա։ Այս հանգրվանին Հայաստանի արվեստի հեղինակությունները եւս թերմ ունին գդարելիք, սպասելի է, որ ժամանակի ընթացքին անոնք ուշադրություն տան ուսումնասիրեն Արմանդի ոճային նրբությունները, որ ժամանակի ընթացքին անպայման պիտի հետ կցկե Հայաստանի մեջ արվեստի վերացական արտահայտության, որը դակավին երկար աշխատանք ունի կատարելու։ Այսքան շատ շնորհակալ եմ, ուսամ լավ եմ գալվեցար այս խորհուրդ։ Իսկ now I think we're going to pass it on to you. By the way, I will translate this into English so that you would keep as a record to what I said, and I know that you would be interested to know.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So I pass on to you.
Okay.
Please.
My son is just coming in the door,
Oh,
so
okay.
my son Rafi
Okay.
really is a true artist in the family as well.
Yeah,
So
well, pass it on. You
Yeah.
know, it's,
yeah, if you don't mind, he's just here. I read.
Should I go in?
Yeah, he can come. Is he there?
Just invite him. Open the door, he will not.
Manish just went to get it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good, yeah.
Okay. You want
Please.
You're comfortable there?
Oh, yeah,
or
no,
over here? Okay. Anyway.
Confused.
Okay, so I just want to thank you all for being here today. This is a real special day for me and my family. It's been a difficult 45 years, and anyway, I'm so glad to start this conversation today. And I have to thank my dear friend Harut, who every time we talk each other, he said, you have to get your brother's art in Armenia. He was it's in his soul, and his work belongs there. So thank you, Harut. And Armen, who I've known, I didn't put two and two together, but I understand his curiosity has sort of got the ball rolling here. So thank you, Armen, and thank you, Ada. I know you have an extremely busy schedule, so I really do appreciate you being here. My brother Armen was quite a young man. Extremely talented, passionate about what he did, what he believed in, extremely sensitive to the world around him, sensitive to the Armenian cause, the Armenian history. He was very close to my grandfather and grandmother, but I'd say mostly my grandfather, and he related to him because he was a foundryman, and many of Armen's sculptures were built in the foundry, and they were extremely hard work. He'd make the wax patterns, burn out the wax, and then make this mold, and I can still see him pounding the sand. And in one of these articles, he said when he poured the metal, he said he felt like an expectant father, never knowing exactly what was going to come out, but excited to see the end result. And that was him. was very strong-willed, had a wonderful sense of humor, and very social. And certainly his untimely death caught us all off guard, and it's, as I said, it's been difficult for 45 years, and I'm thankful for this opportunity. It certainly helps me get to move on a little bit. So Armin started, I mean, his career as an artist was only really in earnest at about 20. He died just after he had turned 27, so 6 years, but he was tremendously prolific. He loved being in the foundry. We have thousands of sketches, hundreds of bronze sculptures, and a lot of it, he was definitely a son of Armenian soil. And you know, you can see from the drawings here, like the large accented nose, the strong eyebrows, the very dark eyes, and this was a theme. This was a theme in all of his work, and he was really concerned about the Armenian cause, I guess. And you have to remember, this was in the early 70s. We had not many Armenians here. Certainly in this area, there was just a few families. Since then, I'm happy to hear that we have, you know, some recent from immigrants from Armenia and Syria and Lebanon and so on. But at the time, it was difficult to be an Armenian here. We were quite isolated. And in Armin's writing, he'd always talk about, you know, the situation that we were in, and he felt we can never compromise, we can never give in on the recognition, the remembrance of the victims and so on. And often he did lots of sketches of a man on a horse, and I don't recall him telling me, I kind of feel this was his interpretation of David of Sassoon. Rather than that heroic hero, he was representing the plight of the modern day Armenia. And he said, we cannot forget. He said, only if we forget do the Turks win. You know, our survival is dependent on it. So this is one of my favorite pieces. And in 1973, Armin and I went to New York for the unveiling of the famous sculpture by Ruben Nakyan at the St. Vartan Armenian Church. And we had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Nakyan, and then we went to his home in Stamford, Connecticut. I mean, this is a world legend. His pieces are in the Metropolitan
Museum.
Museum.
It's still there at the church?
In New York,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. So we went to visit Mr. Nakyan, and he was quite encouraging. He said, but you know, we don't want to get tied into just this sort of figurative type things. And I think he encouraged Armin to go on to more minimalist, abstract art. When Armin was doing this type of work, he won a commission at St. John's Catholic Church just a few minutes from here. And it was St. John the Baptist, quite figurative, but quite artistic as well.
Life size like this one.
Yeah, and then he became fortunate. Elcan Aluminum discovered Armin and funded some of his work. And I don't know if this is true, but I think he was encouraged to work in aluminum. And Armin's comments were, aluminum is great for windows and doors. He said, I'm not so sure it's great for artistic accomplishment. At any rate, he won a commission from the Royal Bank here, again, just a few miles from here. And it was called The Family, but it was not the cheery, happy family that I think the Royal Bank wanted represented on their property. It was a grotesque, deformed image of a mother, father, and child looking down on the earth where they came from and where, of course, they're going
Is
to
this
go.
the one?
Yeah, this is the one.
There's an article in there too, I
Yes,
think.
yes.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's Vicky will know, it's in a very industrial part of town where our first foundry started. And of course, lots of ridicule. People threatened to take their accounts out of the Royal Bank. And of course, they clothed the figures.
Right, wow.
This was hey, this was 1973, 74. People weren't quite as open as they are today. Anyway, at one point, he said, I can't do it anymore. He said, that's me, you know, and this is my work. So he just went and dug them up, and I said, Armin, are you sure this is legal? He said, those sculptures belong to me. So since then, so
He's the father.
50, he's the father. 50 years later, they've been in storage and things like that. After this style, and I think because of the influence of Mr. Nakian, Armin got into this more minimalist, abstract art, and many of these were titled after the book Daredevils of Sassoon. There was Battle of Zaytun, David of Sassoon, and there was a couple others that had Armenian titles. He was very, very influenced by all things Armenian, I would say. And my father and I went in 1981, and in fact met Harut there.
We were.
But I wish Armin could have been there. He certainly, I think, would have had a very positive.
Tremendous.
Yeah. So anyway, this piece. So you know, he was 25 in 1975. So there was a big art exhibition at the University of Guelph of this sort of thing, but very large, black steel, rusted steel, and it was tremendous. But we had to take it down, and we stored it in a farm barn, and it got vandalized and so on. But there was about, I'm going to say 15 of these. Vicky may remember, she was part of it, and
Was there a yellow one?
there was yellow, green, black, Descent from the Cross, and so on. Actually, it's interesting. Many of Armin's work took on a religious context, and it was just something that was noticed in his work. At any rate, this piece was, at that time, he was chosen as one of Canada's top 10 contemporary artists, quite an accomplishment for a 25-year-old. And this piece, David of Sassoon, was chosen to be displayed at the Montreal Olympics in 1976. Again, quite an amazing accomplishment. So Vicky's factory helped build this into a life-size figure. And then in fact, that piece went to the University of Waterloo. I think that's where Armin saw it. So, you know, we're so proud of what he did in such a short.
At the university?
I'm not sure. If it is at the University of Waterloo, it's been moved from its regular place at the library there. But anyway, we're certainly proud of what he accomplished in such a short time. Apart from this award, the St. John's Church again had commissioned him to do the bronze doors, and I saw hundreds of sketches to do these doors, and unfortunately never was completed. And by coincidence, St. John's Armenian Church, under the eye of Alec Manoukian, the great benefactor, had commissioned him to do a large sculpture there in that prominent place in Southfield, I believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
18 Mile Road.
Yes, 8 Mile, yeah.
13.
Okay, anyway, so unfortunately there, lots of sketches, and piece did not get completed. You know, we just don't know. He was just so great to be around, and such a social person. It's difficult, but his work lives with us.
Oh, yeah.
And we have it stored in really inappropriate places because there's so much of it. And I'm grateful. This I donated to the University of Guelph Art Gallery because Armin, of course, studied there under Judy Nasby. I invited her to see the sculptures, and she chose this one. Happens to be the most famous one, but they're all really beautiful like this. And then the gallery has lent it to the foundation office here. So I don't know where we can go from here. I encourage you to to do whatever whatever possible that we can get some of these pieces exhibited in Armenia. If there's a cost, if to make them larger, certainly we'd be more than pleased to help with that, so.
Can I just say something before you move from this particular sculpture? He was very concerned about the environment and the wasted steel, so a lot of the pieces that he started off with, he got from the scrap bins. He actually climbed in there and picked them out and then had them formed. The guys in the shop liked him a lot. He was a very kind person, so some of them would stay behind because my father would let him work after everybody left. Sorry.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of like nuts and bolts ones, those were cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just wanted to say that they really liked him. And at night, when they were ready to go and he was finished for the evening, the ones that stayed behind, he always bought a case of beer.
Oh,
And they each had a drink, a salute
yes.
together. And when the pieces were finished, and whether it went on a flatbed or it went on some other type of truck, he always walked behind them as if it was a procession. And it was absolutely wonderful to see and heartwarming because he was a very good artist and always will be.
Yes,
I
yes,
just wanted
thank you,
to say
Vicki,
that.
thank you.
I would like to ask a particular question. The interface, how did he find your company or your dad, and how he was received
Okay.
by you or your dad or the company itself?
When my father came from Italy, and I believe that your father came from Armenia,
My grandfather.
grandfather, sorry, but he met your father at the metal, what do you call it?
The standard brass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they met, and I think my father may have worked there for a little while because he was a blacksmith. And so he became really close friends with the Buzzian family. We didn't really visit each other, we didn't have to, because the Italian community kind of stuck together because nobody spoke English. And the, I guess Armenian community kind of did the same thing, but a lot of our values are the same. So when Armin came to Alloy Welding, was the name of the company, and spoke to my father was very willing to give him the opportunity because that's part of our culture and yours, I'm sure. You help the children of your friends if you can.
Exactly.
And that's how that started. So he would come and he would sit in the office. My uncle was a partner at the time. He would sit in the office and wait for things to close. And I used to be at the entrance behind a counter, and I saw them talking, and he would come over when everybody left, and we would share stories as well. He at that time was doing some work with protection with the dogs,
Oh, yes.
remember?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was really cute because he used to bring Doberman pictures, and I'm petrified of big dogs. And what would happen is if I looked over the desk, the dog would be on guard ready, you know. And then one day my uncle came and he said to Armin, he says, "Armin, I like you, you're a nice man. Don't bring a dog, okay?" Because he was afraid more than me, because he'd come walking to go into the office, and then the dog was on high alert. Anyway, Armin did a good job in everything that he tried, in my opinion, because he shared a lot of stories that sometimes you can't share with family. We kind of keep it to ourselves. But we had a similar struggles, you know, because we...
Immigrants.
When you're immigrant, you have to find your way, but I think it makes us all resilient. And at least we try. And then out come these beautiful works of art and other wonderful things, good friendships. And we were friends with Greg's family, mom and dad, as far as I can remember. So the friendship lasted many years.
Your dad used to come into the jewelry shop bringing his wine every Christmas and things like that, so, yeah, it was a tremendous relationship, Vicki, and you know how we...
Well, I would think that the Italian background made a big difference, because what Greg was saying about these abstractions, and that was semi-abstractions, the local people would not be able to understand. And this is why they kept a distance or, you know, destroyed them if they could. And only the ones who have a past elevation in art
Interesting.
could appreciate and be on the same page.
You're right. I often thought, when Armin sometimes said that he would be criticized, as if that really wasn't a job, what he was doing, you know. And often I think of Michelangelo in Rome, where the Pope, instead of saying, what a beautiful job you did, he said, hurry up, get finished, you know. And I thought that's because they don't understand how long it takes, the thought that's in your head to put it down on paper, or to work with your hands is such a treasure, it really is. I am so happy that this is happening, because every once in a while I would say, that, you know, to Greg, or if there's, could be something in his memory, you know, to keep him, but now there is, and that's, I mean, there are other places too, but not everybody knows about them, especially in Guelph, where things have gone outside the city. But it was great to see it up at the university. I'm not sure if it's just been moved, because it used to be in one spot and then they enlarged that hall, and I think it got moved closer to the back, so I'm not 100% sure. But I won't forget, and how proud he was when one of the pieces would go, that was done, it's complete. That's what great satisfaction for him, and for us too, because we all kind of followed along because he was there a lot, and that's fine. You know, my father and my uncle loved to see him, and at that time people had freedom to go in and out of factories. Too bad that things have changed so much that you hardly know the persons beside you other than their punch card. But anyhow, I just wanted to say that. Thank you for asking. It has been a great relationship and continues. If I happen to go in fact, not too long ago, my son went in to see Greg and John, and I think the young artist that's at the door there had some work. I gave my engagement ring to my, which it had been made at Canard Jewelry, and I gave it to my future daughter-in-law to have it arranged in whatever manner she wanted, because I lost my husband, and not that I needed a diamond ring, because I don't need it, what for? So they did tremendous work.
It's the same as a family.
Another artist, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does feel like family. And I just want to tell you that when I went for the first time to an Armenian service when your dad passed away, I loved it. I so wanted to go, and that was the first time. And I'm Roman Catholic, but there's, like I said, a lot of things that are similar, and we all have blood in our systems,
Yes.
just a little bit,
And heart that
a little
pumps.
bit different, but you know what? Our hearts, as far as the Armenian people, the Italian people, and I want to say Lebanese too, because I have a lot of friends who are Lebanese. Anyway, we're close. Let's put that way. We're close to each other, and we keep our friendships and defend them.
I grew up in
By the
Italy.
way, I'm Armenian Lebanese.
Oh,
Vicky, we have an important
I was-
announcement here.
okay.
It's not it's not a secret. I grew up in Italy, in Venice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I graduated from school there and went to Canada, and I could not resist myself from painting and sculpting like Arman. And I didn't take any art. I couldn't speak English. So I went to the art room, and they would just pass on to me all these paints and brushes and the canvas. And I would just put it above the cupboards so that they would dry, nobody would touch them. I would come the next day, it's gone.
Oh,
So do it more, and never saw the end. But this is what the inspiration comes, I guess, in Italy, and it's very contagious.
Time
And-
allows.
Okay.
Can I say a couple of words?
Yes,
Because
yes,
you
yes,
shared
yes.
memories. You have shared memories, and this is wonderful. I've never met Arvad. I didn't know anything about him and his art. And for the first time, Howard introduced me. I went to Guelph Foundation, which was on Cork Street. Yeah, on Cork Street, to see this. my first impression was I was shocked seeing. I saw an energy coming from this one, and I've noticed that Armand has something to tell me to my generation, and Armand has something to tell me to pass to the generation of my kids. So this is it became kind of important issue. I came to Harut and I said, Harut, this is not just piece of art. This is a message for the entire nation. And at the beginning, probably I thought I lost my mind or
No, I'm on the same wavelength.
So I don't understand this abstract art, to be honest. So, and when you say David of Sassoon or Sassoon, for me it's modern art with a sword. So when I saw this is completely different energy, and completely different message. And we have to also understand that Armand lives in your memories, but Armand also belongs, and his spirit belongs also to the nation. And this spirit has an important message to tell everyone today. And why Armenia right now in their need for spiritual growth and culturally, we need to keep Armand and all our great artists work and say, this is our roots. We are not going to abandon this, and we are continuing and growing this. This is what I understand. Without knowing Armand, without knowing anything about his work, just seeing this, it was a shock to me. And I think with Harut, one day we will accomplish Harut's dream.
Yeah.
Put the seed in Armenia and grow. And Mr. Papian will take this message to Armenia and say, yes, we are going to grow.
Yes, let's go. We should invite Vicky to go Armenia.
Yes, yes.
That'd be really nice.
No, this event is really an
Seriously.
opportunity because this will be broadcasted via our TV stations online that we have, and people will know about this. It's very important first to Armenian people in Armenia know, because Armenian diaspora is really huge, is dispersed all over the world, and there are some really pieces of art all over and we need to know, because okay, he is Canadian, but meanwhile he's Armenian. This is very important thing. We can have this kind of dual loyalty. When Aznavour asked, are you French or Armenian? He told, I'm 100% Armenian, I'm 100% French. I think people can have in their heart these two pieces coming together, and this enriches people. Having these heritages coming from other cultures, and this is an opportunity, and Armenian people in Armenia, ես հիմա կարծում եմ, որ սա հնարավորություն է Հայաստանում ավելի շատ իմանալու Արման Բազբազյանի մասին, եւ մի օր մենք կարծում ենք, որ ինքը եւ շատ ավելի ուրիշները պիտի նոր մտքովս անցան, նաեւ մենք անդադ խոսում ենք Սփյուռքի մասին, բայց Սփյուռքի օրինակը արվեստագետների ես բաների ինչ որ մի պիտի կենտրոն լինի, որ մարդիկ գալով իմանան, տեսնեն, մարդիկ կան, չէ, որ եւ Կանադա, Միացյալ Նահանգներ, չգիտեմ, Լիբանան, Սիրիա, տարբեր տեղեր, եւ ես վստահ եմ, որ այդ ժառանգները ամեն մեկը 1-2 արվեստի գործ սիրահուժար ծեվի այդ թանգարանի նվեր գտան։ Հիմա ուսանք, որ Հայաստանի վիճակը այնքան կբարելավի, որ կկարողանան նման թանգարան ունենա։ I was just speaking that we hope then one day we'll have some kind of art center in Armenia, some kind of museum of Armenian diaspora art as well as part of our heritage, and to collect from all over the world some pieces from Canada, United States, Lebanon, Syria, Argentina, and to show that we are the same nation, we are united, and this will enrich Armenian people. Nice country.
I'd like to share a few things.
Bradley, yes.
Meg, sort of interesting enough, I just mentioned San Lazzaro to my coworker today, because I just came back from Ireland yesterday, and I think Ireland might be the first country that I've been to that did not meet an Armenian that I know of.
Yeah.
Interesting. Two, Armin's favorite works of mine are his animal pictures. Like I have dogs in the back room, and it's the eagle sculpture in the back is really cool. And I wanted to say, oh, it's funny that immigrant thing, my friend Lydia, she's a big fan of your brother's work. She wanted to buy a few pieces. Remember I told you one time?
Your uncle,
Yeah, my friend. She's a foreigner, like from Poland.
your
Sorry.
brother.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my uncle. But yeah, she's from Poland, and she's like really big fan of his work. She wanted to buy the one in the basement. Of your house.
Beautiful.
Yeah, interesting. The foreigners are.
So I think what I can say, what I said in Armenian was Armand's resurrection minute today. And from here on, we will just make his works come out, explode as much as possible, and propagate all around the world, in particular in Armenia. It may not be appreciated much, these kind of forums in a local public place at the moment, because they're still in classical thought process. I read the benches, Yerevan, in the classical lines, and you say, okay, they did this for 700 years. Now, why can't they do something of this sort? Because this gives you another way of looking at things and more practicality to the 2000 dates. And I think we have to look forward, and I think this will impact the thought process and the art in Armenia.
Sorry, the big blue one, was that made at your dad's place?
It's the model of this.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder how they did that.
And this can be replicated very easily
Yeah,
anywhere.
we have it over at the community center in.
Yeah, I mean, I can measure this.
Sure.
And give
Yeah.
the blueprints,
Mhm.
and they can do it, anywhere.
Yeah,
That's not the same.
Pardon?
Not the original one.
No,
shit.
you take these measurements,
Oh, I know.
make a
Hospital.
blueprint,
Uh-huh.
send it anywhere.
I understand.
We can do it in New York,
Yes.
wherever.
Rafi's middle name is Armin. by
I
the
was
way.
gonna mention that. I don't know if you saw that photo I took at the Hard Rock in Dublin the other day, the Guinness glass, and it said bar.
I saw
But then
that.
I read it backwards. I'm like, oh, Buzz Armin Rafi. So that's funny.
Anything anybody else would like to participate? Concern.
Հանգամանքների բերումով այնպես հաստատվել, որ ես եւ իմ կինը այսօր ներկայացնում ենք Մորելա հայություն։
Այո։
So պետք է իմ կողմից եւ երևի Մորելա հայության կողմից պետք է ասեմ, որ մեծ պատիվ է գնել այստեղ։ Մինչև մի քանի ժամ առաջ Արման Բուզբուզյան անունը ինձ ոչինչ չէր ասում։ Իմ առջև բացվեց մի նոր աշխարհ կարող եմ ասել։ Ես գիտեի գալիս եմ Սասունցի Դավիթի abstract արձան տեսնելու, բայց չէի սպասում։ Սա մի ուրիշ աշխարհ բացվեց իմ առաջ եւ ես էլ 100% վստահ եմ, որ պետք է ամեն ինչ անել, որ Արմանի գործերը Հայաստանում ոչ միայն իմանան, այլև ունենան։ Եվ կարծում եմ, որ պարոն Պապյանը այդ մեսաժը նույնպես կհասցնի Հայաստան, շատ արվեստագետ բարեկամներ ունի եւ կառավարական։
I have a suggestion. If you will find some high quality photos we'll take of what he has done, for the first step we can publish a book in Armenia about him, about his life, have photos, at least a small album people to know as a first step. Yeah.
Yeah,
Some
we
photos,
have thousands of slides.
This is
Yeah.
what he have done, maybe some sketches and
Yes,
so.
yeah.
And we can find
Yeah,
some
we can start from there.
from the book, because it's the easiest part and make people to know.
Well,
going through
Even the
photos.
internet's probably easier, just like Instagram, if you have an example, if you wanted to make one for your brother, uncle,
Yeah.
you can just make it his Instagram, all his artwork, and spread the word, like hashtag Armenia artist, and people around the world can just see him just like that's something, you know? You know? Yeah, it's just him just sitting there.
Ամեն լուրջ ուսումնասիրություն կա։ եւ նախապատրաստությունը դիմի իրենց կողմից, որտեղ իրենց մոտ է անում։
Հա, իրենց մոտ իրենք որ այդ ամբողջ նկարներ, ֆոտոներն ունենան, հետո ամբողջը կարելի է մի արվեստագետի տալ, ոնց որ ասած պատվիրել ինքը ուսումնասիրել։
Ինչ շատերի պիտի բաժանես, որ դարձել գազիկներ,
Հա, տարբեր կարծիքներ է ցեվ։ Հիմա նայ, կարելի է ինտերնետով էլ անել, բայց գիտեք, ալբոմը տպագրությունն ուրիշ է, երբ որ դու գիրքը սիրուն ես, մեկին գտնաս նվեր տաս, եւ այլն։ Չէ, բայց you have to have some copies of that, maybe some digital copy on internet as well, but you have to have some kind of publications. Hard copy is դա հակառակապես արվեստի գործ է, ինքը նայում է, people
it's
used
a
to
conversation
go,
piece.
even when you smell that it's totally different then.
That's
It
right.
gives some kind of life. And then people will know, and maybe one day, as I told, we'll have some kind of gallery or museum in Armenia for diaspora
Yes.
artists.
I have a question to you.
Mhm.
In many of these pieces, you don't understand how this man, a brother, he was older than you.
5 years, yeah.
5 years. How did he reach to these points of elevation into this national theme that, I know, was he AYF?
Yes, yes,
He was.
yes.
Okay, maybe he got some inspiration from AYF.
Yeah, it was more of a family thing. As you know, my father was
Yes. Uh-huh.
very strong Armenian.
Tough.
Yeah, the dinner table, there was many heated arguments.
Oh, back then, eh?
Yeah, and, you know, it was not just Armenian
way.
politics,
Yes.
but history
Yes.
and world history and world politics, but often Armenian. We were lucky, we had, you know, my mom's family, that, you know, we were close with, my dad's parents and so on. It was, he read, he was a compulsive reader, compulsive writer. He was, it's like he knew he had a short time. I mean, that's,
I kind of sense that
Yeah.
as well. Given the speed of production, that in a very short period of time, he says hundreds of these pieces. I can't even think.
not hundreds of these, but.
I mean, similar,
Yes,
the
like,
sketches.
yeah, oh, thousands of sketches.
Thousands.
This piece, I mean, here he is, I guess, in the foundry,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
this
that was
is
picture.
George Hancock from Elkan Aluminum.
Uh-huh.
They became so close.
Right.
And, I mean, just to make a piece like this, and some of the life-size ones, that's what he said, to be a sculptor is hard work.
Yeah.
He said, it's not like a painter,
Oh, it's in
and he said a painting tends to be in a gallery, so there's people who are going to see
Yeah.
the art on the wall. He said, but with his sculpture, you're vulnerable because it's out in the public domain. And, you know, I mean, I got even our own family, like, we were, you know, humble foundrymen, and, you know, this was kind of a big leap, but, you know, I know my parents supported him amazingly. But we'd go into the foundry. I was working in the foundry for some time, and you know, I'd go in the morning, and you know, there was these big wooden boxes to carry the castings. Geez, there'd be an Armenian picture on them, and it was there for years and years after.
Really?
Yeah, when Barujan took over,
Yes.
those sketches were there, kind of like almost like, you know, the pyramids. Like somebody's left their mark here.
Do you remember any particular moment with him that you would have interacted and he would tell you something about one of his works or his worries and, you know, his turmoil?
Yeah, he was so sensitive to the world around him, and people who were having difficulties, he would always help. I'm sure Vicky has many stories like that. Corbett Gray was a famous painter, and he had a gallery up in Elora, and he was really quite famous in Canada and New York. And he told me, he said, I told Armin one day, he says, I need a sign on my gallery. And he says, next thing I know, a few days later, Armin made this kind of neat metal sign. He's up on a ladder he always found time for that. He found time for his family. And the energy, he trained guard dogs, he did karate. He was an athlete in high school, but there was this other calling, and before he got into this artistic stuff, he used to go and tinker into the factory, and he'd make, men out of scrap metal with symbols. There was one, even though they were crafty, they wouldn't, you'd say artistic, but there was one, I saw it in your basement the other
I
day,
know what you're talking
and there was a man in a cage.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
cool.
I remember him discussing that with my father, that, it's a man in a cage, like the freedoms and things that, we don't experience now.
I consider that art.
Yeah. But these were much more serious, I'd say, and, anyway, I miss him dearly.
That's, well, we're gonna miss him too. It's not only you.
Yeah, very good memories of
It's-
Israel is alive.
It's it's very contagious.
Yes, thank you, yeah.
Once you get this, like Armin was, next, and I passed it on to many others. And still, it's in a closed box.
Mm-hmm.
This has to explode.
Yes.
And I think you should also put your memories down, because it will pass.
Mm-hmm.
You will forget. And the more you put it on paper or record it somehow, it will stay longer
Yes.
and it will pass.
I should share with Ara too, my father passed away 4.5 years ago, but before he passed, our high school in Cambridge, he said, your father has an amazing memory and lived with the Armenians. And he said, could you get his memoirs? And my brother-in-law, Harut, said, no, we'll take a video.
Mm-hmm.
So we have I haven't watched it. My father will be 100 in
November 15th.
November 15th.
Oh, wow.
So I thought maybe we'd have a unveiling of this video, but some of the stories my father says are just amazing. So you had just a few families in Guelph, and they were all, from the farms and things, but they still, even then, they had a school here, like, just a Saturday school. And my father, this one story, he said, they're talking about Armenia, and my dad had this memory. He says, I remember Mr. Mesropian standing up, pounding the table, and he says, I pledge $1. But he has all these stories, and I know them, but, I'd like to share
So
them.
you
with
have
her.
it recorded.
Because many people I met in Detroit over the years, they said, oh, I was born in your grandparents' home, or, passing through, because they had a big farmhouse. Yosef Karsh came to the house. He wanted to take photographs of Armenians, and my dad, my grandfather's uncle lived there, and he chased them away, go get a job or something like that. But some of the stories that we have, I hate for them, the thought of them disappearing.
Like the penny race you got?
Oh yeah, this was a good one. I shared this at my dad's, well, you were there too, Howard. But he worked in the foundry, and my dad did, and he was as he said, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. I'm sure there's a little bit of Armenian exaggeration there, but he said he was making, what did he say, 20 cents an hour, and he went to Mr. Cunningham, and I knew the family, and he said, Mr. Cunningham, I've been here for a year, I'm doing a good job, I need to make more money. So he walked away and he said, okay, Buzzian, I'll see what I can do. And then a few days later, he said, Buzzian, I got you 3 cents an hour, but don't spread the jam. So, the hardship. Armin did a sketch, I saw it again the other day, there was an Armenian man here, Nazar Krikorian, and him and my grandfather were best friends. And they worked in the foundry. I can remember seeing them pounding that sand. And Armin did a sketch, he just called it Friends, and kind of a stylized sketch of both men. You'd certainly recognize, who they were. They weren't caricature or anything. Anyway, and then he wrote about this deep friendship, how they, came from Armenia, and they retained this friendship, lifetime friendship. And Mr. Krikorian, even when I had my first little shop, he'd always come by. He had a cane. He would have been probably 90, but he'd always come and visit me and tell me how he missed my granddad and things like that. Like these are our history here, you know. And I'm so glad just to share it with you guys today, because they all influenced Armin. He was taken by this stuff and would not give it up. And even though he was very modern, ultra modern, I guess you could say, in his approach to life, but he still had these roots that he couldn't let go of. They just formed such a part of his personality. And that trip to New York when we met Mr. Nakian, I thought, I'm going to New York with my brother, we're going to go into some fancy bars and things. No, it was Museum of Modern Art, Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I still can see him in the sculpture garden just sitting there, and he was just absorbing it. He was so passionate about art. He took it so serious, and he taught kids, and I know he got frustrated that they didn't take it serious enough, but it was quite a story, and boy, I'd love to be able to share it with others.
Well, I read yesterday there's a new museum that opened up in the ward recently. Did you read about it?
In Guelph here?
Yeah, in the ward. Yeah, a couple opened up, all sorts of Canadian artists. I wonder if they'd be interested. Maybe something.
Oh, they would be more than interested.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a small place, but yeah.
I mean, just give them some time, and I think they will be running after you.
Yeah, I did donate this piece. I called Judy Nasby from the art gallery, who knew Armin well, and she just came out with a book on. She was responsible for opening. It was called the McDonald Stewart Art Gallery at the time, and Armin had done an exhibition there, so she's listed it in the book. So I gathered a few of these pieces and said I'd like a piece to be in the University of Guelph Permanent Gallery, and she picked this one, and I told her it's a small version of something that's already existing, and she was quite comfortable with it. And then next thing I know, it ended up here. So I don't know how.
She said it was on loan.
On loan,
Yeah.
okay. Well, it's been on loan for quite a few years then, yeah.
Yeah, slowly sinking.
Oh, sorry, has this been right here?
No, it used to be on Cork Street, in the office behind their store.
I thought I recognized it. I'm like, no way. Oh, that's so weird.
Right, can I just make an observation? Mr. Ambassador, and you, sir, I'm sorry,
Haru, Harry,
Okay.
whatever.
I just wanted to say that you mentioned this traveling all over the world, and especially in Armenia, but all over the world, and you mentioned about exploding with information and all of the work that Armand has done, but not just his work, but his personality, because everything has to be together. It has to be full circle. When I mentioned that this was on a flatbed or on one of the trucks at Alloy, and he walked behind it, the heaviness, not the heaviness, but it was tall, the bigger
big one.
pieces, it swayed in the wind. So to me, as I see that and envision him walking behind there, it has traveled already, and it's going to continue to travel. So you were right. This is actually made to be all over the world, and it's light enough, but yet sturdy.
My grandpa mentioned to me once that it was supposed to represent like a ribbon in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember?
Yeah, you can interpret it whichever way you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
It's up to the
Oh, yeah.
individual.
Yeah.
When I look at it, you know what I see? When I look at it, it says, "We will rise like a phoenix, and you cannot mess with it. No tyranny can mess with it." This is, and it can be done in this way, in abstract way. I never thought that it can be done in abstract. I'm not, I don't have good knowledge in abstract.
But the way Armin has manipulated this piece of steel
Ribbon.
is
Yeah.
ribbon,
Beautiful with the wind.
is
yeah.
such that it's so lightweight. You know, you can just blow it away, but it's steel,
Mm.
and it's telling you this is, you know, solid,
Ah.
just like sesame seed.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all
Thank you,
for
thank you.
being here today
Oh, my
and
pleasure, Bobo.
hearing the story and,
There are a lot, this is the beginning.
Yeah.
We can't pack everything into one small box and slice of time, but this is the start, and, you know, wherever it's gonna take us to is, it's up to us.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I want to just add a couple of words here. I'm so fascinated with these stories and everything, and I thank you, Armin, for inviting me here. This is such an opportunity to be part of Armenian history being unveiled here. To me, abstract art was not known. I was young, and I was I had a priest from San Lazaro, Harutyun Bezdigan. I don't know if
Oh,
you
yeah,
remember.
it was my,
Yeah, so he
He
would
wasn't a priest at the
paint
time.
those art, and I can't understand nothing. And then one person came and said, "Can I ask you a question, priest? Hi, Harutyun." I goes, "Yeah." And he was like, "When are you gonna die?" He goes, "Why?" Because he goes, "Your art after you die becomes so valuable. I want to see when." But no, when I looked at this one, I saw Armenian history went through so many stresses, so many genocides and battles, and always rising up. That's my interpretation.
Beautiful.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
So I thank everybody here for inviting me here. I'm so, I'm having goosebumps right now.
yeah, we all are somehow.
Yeah.
And I think it's a memory, and I'm glad that, you know, this compacted information and artwork and material is surfacing, you know, to the top, and it's gonna fly above it. So,
I mean, there's so many forms, sorry. Armin is involved in film, we have sculpture, painting, dancing. I mean, it really is a country of art, I would say, yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
But when City Hall of Toronto was initiated and Leonin won the competition, a Finn architect,
Yes.
people did not understand that piece.
Mhm.
So when, I mean, the mayor had to fight through so many committees that, you know, this is the proper thing to do for us. In any case, he won at the end. He was persistent, and once it was finished, they were looking for a sculpture.
Mhm.
And he said, Henry Moore. Henry Moore was nobody at the time. Was forgotten, this is a crazy guy. And then once they brought that, and they paid him $200,000 as a commission. And ever since, Henry Moore has blown, and at the end, he passed on to the City of Toronto all his sketches.
Yes, yes.
It's at the AGO, downtown Toronto. And I mean, it takes these moments,
Mhm.
and those who can see,
Yeah.
you know, the light at the end of the tunnel. And I cannot forget, I was in Beirut waiting for Canadian papers for 1 year. I was passing by, you're from Beirut?
And Aleppo.
Aleppo, okay. I stopped at this travel agency. It had a poster, said Toronto. And it had City Hall of Toronto. And I was with a friend, he looked, he said, "Is this where you're going?" I said, "Yes." Oh, he says, "I'm so jealous. Can I come with you?" I said, "I'm not there yet, but I'm seeing just like you are seeing this before." And I use this to my clients many times, that what makes Toronto attractive is by these pieces of art and architecture.
Mhm.
And a piece like this, being in the Yerevan, I think it's gonna make a lot of impacts.
Mhm.
And people are gonna be proud that they have seen it and they belong to that country and that art.
And the liaison also with Guelph and or Canada and Armenia, especially
Yes,
it's the right time.
yes.
Canada is opening the embassy in
And,
Armenia.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Cascade, how cool would
Maybe
that be, eh?
when Canada will buy an embassy building, sculptures can be in front of that building.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Exactly.
maybe the first,
Yeah.
very good idea.
introduction.
We have to wait to see.
Or
Yeah.
Armenia
Because-
Cascade.
Yeah.
That's where we stay.
Canada has no problem buying a building in Yerevan. So.
Okay.
Well, this is very exciting, and I
It is.
thank all of you again, so,
Yeah,
the encouragement that I'm feeling here today is,
yeah, I
Really
also
special.
would like to add a final note, if it is final, that the Bezbesian family has really impacted me and impressed me in many, many ways. And one of them is that for so many generations, they all marry Armenian.
we try.
Tell me, how many families are there in Canada?
Well, it was only my grandpa who married an Armenian.
Who?
Only my grandpa of the siblings.
And how about him?
Oh, I meant, oh, sorry, I meant the older.
How about his daughter?
Yes,
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, I meant the older generation.
Okay, the older generation.
there was no Armenians
There
here.
was no Armenian.
Yeah,
And they used to import it from Detroit,
yeah,
right?
yeah, my.
From Detroit.
Yeah.
Hamilton,
Yeah.
she was from Hamilton.
Yes, born in.
Yes,
Okay.
Hamilton, but her parents lived in Detroit.
Yeah, okay.
No. Her sister lived in Detroit. They came from Egypt.
Okay, no, I'm talking about
Yeah.
Lisa, sorry.
They were from Kali, the same area
Kali, yeah.
as my dad's father.
Mhm.
And they knew each other, the families knew each other, but apparently my grandmother, who I knew, was quite an attractive lady, and there was a Turkish soldier who was not violent, I don't think, but just trying to, they call him like a suitor, like wants to marry her. And that family said, no, we won't accept that, so they went to Egypt. And then they came to Hamilton, and my dad's father came here, and then my mom and dad met at an Armenian dance.
Yeah, I was reading that Kali was one of the towns in Ottoman Empire that was predominantly Armenian. They wouldn't let any Turks to come in, like other cities like Kesaria and other places. And Turks had this in mind, and they tried everything to destroy that town. And this is how immigration started to Canada, to the US, and one of them, or two of them, or six of them, were on the Titanic.
Oh.
Survivors, two Armenian Titanic survivors, came to St. Catherine's, and one of them went to Philadelphia. And the other four, two were husband and wife, Vartanian, and the other two perished. So there was a write-up about survivors of the Titanic, and they supposedly asked them, how did you survive? Because you were in the third class. They were locked up. Many, did not make it. They asked him if he dressed like a woman to survive, because the lifeboats were allowed only women, children first, and they suspected that he played foul because
I don't know.
female clothing, and he said no, but that story was, of course, proven not to be true. But
Pretty hard to hide all the hair.
Peggy
Yeah.
has been.
Yeah, we
That
have
source.
sketches of the town, and, so we do have quite a rich history, I gotta
Yes,
say.
and survivors.
My mom's family was quite instrumental in starting the schools in Hamilton, and like I said,
Yeah.
we had a big farmhouse here that
Yeah.
families would pass through and stay, and then many went to Detroit, some to Windsor, and it's been a long time now, but we'd go to a picnic and I'd meet some fellow and he'd say, "Oh, I was born in your grandfather's house," you know, it makes you feel pretty proud, the sacrifice,
Well,
That's why I asked.
well, because of the foundries were here,
yeah,
and I think my grandfather had an uncle here, and his other brothers went to Detroit. There was 3 other brothers. One I met quite regularly. The others had passed away. And they said to my grandfather, "Come to Detroit. There's lots of work," because it would have been the 20s when the auto. Anyway, they caught up with my grandfather and they deported him back to Canada. Until his dying day, he said it was the best day of his life when they sent him back to Canada. So, but they helped a lot of, very philanthropic for our, community centers in Toronto and the AGBU one, because Haisur Jidai was a family friend, so they supported both equally. They were just really, my grandfather, hardly spoke English. My grandmother was an orphan, and somehow they did well, and they continued. They went to Armenia in the 60s, befriended some people, helped them, and then we had a young Armenian couple in Guelph. They came to visit me at my store, and they became our friends. They were at our house regularly. They loved my mom and dad. We've since visited him in Armenia. I still correspond with him. He was dean of the Agri Business College there. Part-time, yeah.
He's a president. He's a president now.
Yes,
He's a
a
president.
different institution though, right?
It's
he's-
affiliated to
yeah.
the same.
beautiful
Wow.
Yeah, so, in fact, his first child is Viken, happens to be my oldest son. I don't know if there's any influence, but we were so close. And I thought, things change, but in many ways they stay the same. And, I was just so pleased to lend a helping hand to this fellow. And it's a difficult life there. And I said, what's your future? He said, "I have to stay in Armenia. My country needs our help." And I thought, it's so refreshing to hear. And, now his oldest son is 18, being drafted into the war or into the army. So there's lots of consequences with that sacrifice. But what a lovely story. And I remember, I thought, geez, I'm reliving my grandparents' thing, whenever there was an Armenian that needed some help, they were there for them, because back then there wasn't many here that had the means to really help, I guess, or the commitment. And sight unseen, somebody coming from Armenia, my grandfather sent them the ticket, you never knew if it was legit or not.
Oh, yeah,
But
even Grandpa wanted to send in the mail that.
Yeah, and then my dad and I, we just had a marvelous 2 weeks in 1981, and it was communist time, but you knew there was something really special there. We spent time in Leningrad and Moscow and Tiflis, Georgia. But when you went to Armenia, you knew, well, I guess because of the diaspora that was maybe helping to fund some of the families there, but it was an awakening for me to see the beauty of the country and the love of the people. It was, yes, yeah. Cold War was on. I ended up in the hospital in Leningrad.
yeah,
Yeah.
cold,
Food poisoning, I think. Some people said I drank too much, but I think it was food poisoning. But it was to be able to share that with my father, and then for Rafi and I to go in 2009 together, it's special, and I wish.
I thought it was 2022 we're going.
Well, we're going to do that too. But every Armenian family that can go, it's an inspiration for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Be nice.
I'm glad, Rafi, you were able to be here to witness this,
Me too.
because you're the timepiece that will carry this to the future.
Oh, yeah, not only my middle name, but
No, not little thing, your eyes.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah, my house is covered, Grandpa's house is covered.
Yeah, you're videoing this.
Oh, yeah, and I wonder, you were saying there's other pieces maybe around town that people don't know of? I wonder, maybe I don't know many of them. No, I only know of the one.
There might be at the university at the back, not sure.
Oh,
Well,
Not
they
sure.
will discover it
Yeah,
soon.
yeah.
But, Brent, before everybody disbands, is it okay if we get a group shot?
Oh,
So that we can remember
yeah.
everybody?
Yeah.
We may meet again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like you in the picture though,
Okay.
Vicky.
No, we